I thought I had it all figured out. 29 years old, decent job as a software developer, nice house in the suburbs with a white picket fence. The whole American dream wrapped up in a neat little package. Most importantly, I had Jessica, my wife of 3 years, the woman who'd stolen my heart when I nervously scribbled my number on a restaurant receipt like some lovesick teenager. Looking back now, I can see how perfectly orchestrated everything was, how carefully she played her role. Jessica Reed, she took my last name, Cross, though she'd drop it soon enough, was 27 and everything I thought I wanted. Beautiful in that girl next door way, with auburn hair that caught the light just right and a smile that could make me forget whatever stupid argument we'd had the night before. When we got married, she quit her administrative job without me even asking. Said she wanted to focus on making our house a home. I was happy to support us both on my salary. Hell, I was proud too. That's what husbands do, right? Our wedding was small but perfect. Local venue, close friends and family, nothing fancy but everything meaningful. That's when Ryan, my best friend since college, surprised us with his gift. Not another toaster or picture frame, but a squirming German shepherd puppy with oversized paws and the biggest brown eyes I'd ever seen. Every family needs a dog, Ryan had said, grinning as he handed over the furry bundle. This is Duke. Jessica had rolled her eyes, but I fell in love instantly. Duke became my shadow, my constant companion. While Jessica focused on her mysterious homemaking activities, which seemed to involve a lot of shopping and phone calls, Duke and I developed our own routine. Morning jogs, weekend soccer matches where he'd chase the ball across our backyard, quiet evenings where he'd sprawl across my feet while I coded. 3 years later, our life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. At least that's what I told myself. I worked my 9 to 5, came home to dinner on the table, watched TV with my wife curled up beside me and my dog at my feet. Perfect domestic bliss. But lately, something had been off. Jessica was different, more distant. Always on her phone, typing messages with a secretive smile I didn't recognize. Her shopping trips with friends got longer, more frequent. She started closing the bathroom door when she never used to. Little things that individually meant nothing but together formed a pattern my programmer's brain couldn't ignore. I told myself I was being paranoid. Marriage has ups and downs, right? She was probably just bored, needed some space, wanted more excitement in her life. Normal stuff. We'd work through it. That Saturday afternoon changed everything. Jessica announced she was going shopping with her friend Claire, another one of those mysterious trips that seemed to happen every few days now. She kissed my cheek, grabbed her purse, and disappeared out the front door with a cheerful, "See you later, honey." I settled onto our couch with a cold beer, ready to watch Arsenal play. Duke trotted into the living room, tail wagging with that boundless enthusiasm that never failed to make me smile. But instead of his usual tennis ball or rope toy, he had something black clutched in his mouth. "What you got there, boy?" I called, patting my leg. Duke bounded over, dropped his prize at my feet, and sat back with that expectant look that said, "Praise me. I brought you a present." I looked down. My blood turned to ice. Black boxer briefs. Size large. A brand I'd never seen before, definitely not mine. I wear medium, always have. These weren't from my drawer. They weren't from my laundry. They'd never been mine. I picked them up with shaking hands, turning them over, searching for some explanation that would make this nightmare make sense. Ryan had stayed over a few weeks ago after a poker night. Could they be his? But Ryan was smaller than me, wore a different brand, and these looked fresh, recently worn. My mind raced through possibilities, each one more devastating than the last. A laundry mix-up at the cleaners? Wrong size delivered by mistake? But deep down, in that part of my brain that processes code and logic and patterns, I already knew the truth. My wife was cheating on me. Duke sat there, tail still wagging, waiting for his praise. Good dog. He'd done exactly what German shepherds are bred to do: protect their pack, bring important things to their alpha's attention. He'd just delivered proof that my marriage was a lie. I stared at those boxer briefs, then at Duke's innocent face, then around our living room, our home, our life together. Everything I'd thought was real and solid and permanent. The Arsenal match played on the TV, but I couldn't hear it over the roaring in my ears. Something was very, very wrong. When Jessica came home that evening, I was still sitting on the couch, the evidence on the coffee table in front of me. She walked in with shopping bags, humming some tune, completely at ease. "How was the game?" she asked, not even looking at me. "Interesting," I replied carefully. "Duke found something today. Something unusual." I watched her face as she finally noticed the underwear on the coffee table. For just a second, less than a heartbeat, her expression flickered. Panic, fear, guilt? Then it was gone, replaced by that practiced smile. "Oh, that?" She laughed, waving her hand dismissively, probably from when Ryan stayed over. You know how men are with laundry. But I noticed something else. While she'd been talking, while she'd been laughing off my concerns, her hand had moved to the coffee table. When she walked upstairs to put away her shopping, the underwear went with her. She took the evidence. She was hiding something, and now so was I. Sleep didn't come that night. I lay beside Jessica, listening to her breathing, watching the rise and fall of her chest in the darkness. Every small sound made my pulse spike. When she shifted in her sleep, I wondered if she was dreaming about him, whoever he was. My mind churned through months of small details I'd dismissed. The new lingerie she'd bought for herself, but never wore around me. The way she started keeping her phone face down during dinner. The late-night texts she explained away as work drama from a job she didn't have. The sudden interest in going to the gym, coming home flushed and energetic in a way that had nothing to do with exercise. How long had I been blind? How long had I been the fool? When Jessica finally stirred Sunday morning, I was already up, making coffee with the mechanical precision of a man going through the motions of normal life. "You're up early," she mumbled, padding into the kitchen in that silk robe I'd bought her for Christmas. "Couldn't sleep," I answered, which was true enough. She wrapped her arms around my waist from behind, pressing against my back in what should have been an intimate gesture. Instead, it felt like a performance, like she was playing the role of loving wife. "Everything okay?" she asked, but I heard the testing in her voice. Seeing if I'd swallowed her lie about Ryan's underwear. "Yeah," I lied back. "Just work stuff." She seemed satisfied with that, disappearing back upstairs for her long Sunday routine of showers and primping and whatever else she did to prepare for another week of deception. I waited until I heard the hairdryer, then grabbed my keys. The hardware store was already busy with weekend warriors tackling home improvement projects. I walked the aisles with purpose, knowing exactly what I needed. 4 wireless security cameras with motion detection and smartphone alerts. Top-of-the-line equipment, small enough to hide, smart enough to catch everything. The kid at the checkout couldn't have been more than 19, probably thought I was setting up basic home security. If only he knew he was selling me the tools to destroy my marriage. I drove home with the cameras hidden in a bag of random hardware supplies, screws, electrical tape, the kind of stuff that wouldn't raise questions. Jessica was still upstairs, blow-drying her hair into submission. I worked fast. One camera positioned near the front door, angled to capture anyone entering or leaving. One hidden in the living room bookshelf behind a row of technical manuals Jessica never touched. One in the guest bedroom we used for storage. If she was bringing someone here, that room would give her privacy from the master bedroom. And finally, the most important one, hidden behind a picture frame on the dresser in our bedroom with a perfect view of our bed. Each camera synced to my phone through an app that would send instant notifications when motion was detected. I tested each one, watching myself on the tiny screen, adjusting angles until the coverage was perfect. Then I deleted my browser history, buried the receipts in the garage trash, and forced myself to act normal. When Jessica came downstairs an hour later, I was reading on the couch with Duke sprawled across my feet. She looked beautiful. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, dressed in jeans that hugged her curves just right. Once upon a time, that sight would have made me forget everything else. Now it just made me wonder who she was trying to impress. "I'm going to Claire's for lunch," she announced, checking her phone. "Might do some shopping after." "Have fun," I said, not looking up from my book. She paused at the door and I felt her studying my face. "You sure you're okay?" she asked. You seem distant. I met her eyes, saw the calculation behind her concern. She was wondering if I suspected anything, if her performance was slipping. I'm fine, I replied with a smile that felt like it belonged on someone else's face. Just tired. She seemed satisfied, kissed my forehead like a dutiful wife, and left. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed my phone and opened the camera app. All 4 feeds showed empty rooms waiting. The motion detection was armed. If anyone came into my house while I was gone, I'd know instantly. Monday morning, I took an extended lunch break and drove across town to the law offices of Klein & Associates. Robert Klein had a reputation as the most ruthless divorce attorney in the county, the kind of lawyer you hired when you wanted to destroy your opponent, not negotiate with them. His office was exactly what I'd expected: expensive furniture, law degrees covering every wall, the smell of leather and ambition. Klein himself was a thin, sharp-faced man in his 50s who looked like he'd smile while ripping your throat out. "What can I do for you, Mr. Cross?" he asked, gesturing to the chair across from his massive desk. I explained the situation calmly. Suspected infidelity, surveillance cameras installed, waiting for concrete proof. Klein listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or making notes on his legal pad. "Smart approach," he said when I finished. "Video evidence of adultery changes everything, especially with a prenup in play. You said you have one?" "Yes," I confirmed. "Standard agreement, but it includes an infidelity clause. If either party commits adultery, they forfeit all claims to marital assets." Klein's smile was predatory. "Then if you get that video evidence, she walks away with nothing. House, savings, investments, all yours. No alimony, no property division. Clean break. How long would the process take?" I asked. "With solid evidence? 60 to 90 days, maybe less if she doesn't contest. Most cheating spouses don't fight when the evidence is overwhelming. They just want it over quietly." I shook his hand, feeling the first spark of satisfaction I'd had since Duke dropped those boxer briefs at my feet. "I'll call you when I have what I need." "Looking forward to it, Mr. Cross," he replied. I drove back to work, buried myself in code and debugs and the familiar rhythm of problem solving. But my phone sat on my desk like a loaded gun, waiting for that first notification. Days passed. Jessica continued her routine: shopping trips, gym visits, mysterious phone calls taken in other rooms. She was affectionate at home, maybe even more than usual, cooking my favorite meals, curling up next to me during movies, asking about my day with what seemed like genuine interest. But I knew better now. It was all performance, all part of maintaining the perfect lie. 1 week after installing the cameras, I was at my desk debugging a particularly stubborn piece of code when my phone buzzed. Motion detected, front door camera. My heart hammered as I opened the app. The timestamp showed 2:14 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon. Jessica should have been at her book club, another one of those convenient excuses that I'd never thought to question. Instead, I watched a man I'd never seen before walk through my front door like he owned the place. Tall, fit, probably early 30s with dark hair and an arrogant smile that made my blood boil. He looked around my living room with casual familiarity, then turned toward the camera with his arms spread wide. Jessica appeared in the frame, moving toward him with a smile I'd never seen before. Hungry, eager, completely unlike the woman who gave me polite pecks on the cheek. She wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him deeply, passionately, the way she used to kiss me in the early days of our relationship, the way she hadn't kissed me in over a year. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. This was it. This was the proof I needed. But knowing and seeing were two different things. Watching your wife welcome another man into your home, into your life, into your bed. It cut deeper than I'd prepared for. The living room camera caught them pouring wine, settling onto my couch, touching and laughing like old lovers. Then Jessica stood, took his hand, and led him toward the stairs. The bedroom camera would activate any moment. I closed my laptop, stood up on unsteady legs, and walked to my manager's office. "I need to leave," I told him. "Family emergency." He looked up with concern. "Is everything okay?" "It will be," I answered. I drove home with my phone propped on the dashboard, the live feed playing like the world's most devastating movie. The bedroom camera had activated the moment they walked upstairs. I forced myself to watch as they undressed each other with the easy familiarity of people who'd done this before. Many times before, Jessica looked different with him, alive in a way I hadn't seen in months. She laughed at something he said, threw her head back with genuine joy, pulled him onto our bed, my bed, with an eagerness that made my chest feel like it was caving in. Every red light felt like an eternity. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel, but my mind was crystal clear. I wasn't angry anymore. I was beyond anger. I was cold, focused, calculating. The hurt would come later. Right now, I had work to do. Duke was waiting in the living room when I pulled into the driveway 20 minutes later. On my phone screen, Jessica and her lover, I'd heard her call him Brandon, were fully engaged, completely oblivious to everything beyond their stolen moment. I parked quietly, grabbed my phone, and stepped out of the car. The front door was unlocked. I walked inside to find Duke sitting alert in the living room, ears perked, sensing something was wrong. "Hey, boy," I whispered, kneeling down to scratch his head. His tail wagged, but he stayed focused, watching my face. "You ready to earn your keep?" Duke's tail moved faster. He knew. Dogs always know when the pack is under threat. I could hear them upstairs, moaning, bed springs creaking, Jessica's voice saying things she'd never said to me, making sounds she hadn't made for me in years. My jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. I walked upstairs with Duke at my heels, each step deliberate and quiet. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, just enough for the sounds to carry. I took one last breath, centered myself, and pushed it open wide. "What the—" Brandon scrambled backward, eyes wide with shock, trying to cover himself with the sheet. Jessica screamed, pulling the comforter over her chest. "Ethan? Oh my God, what are you— how did you—" I didn't say a word. Didn't need to. I simply whistled. Short, sharp, commanding. Duke lunged. The German Shepherd hit Brandon like a missile, 90 pounds of muscle and fury and protective instinct. Brandon's scream was high-pitched, inhuman, terrified. Duke's jaws clamped down on his thigh, and he shook his head the way his ancestors had brought down much larger prey. "Get him off! Get him off!" Brandon shrieked, trying to kick at Duke while blood streamed down his leg. Jessica was screaming too, hysterical, trying to pull on clothes while pleading with me. "Call him off! Please, Ethan, call him off!" But I just stood there, arms crossed, watching with cold satisfaction. This was justice. Swift. Brutal. Perfect. Brandon finally tore free, stumbling off the bed in blind panic. He grabbed his pants, hobbled toward the door with Duke snapping at his heels. I heard him crash down the stairs, nearly falling, then burst out the front door, still half naked and bleeding. Through the bedroom window, I watched him throw himself into his car and peel out of the driveway, tires screeching like he was fleeing for his life, which, in a way, he was. I turned back to Jessica, who had collapsed on the floor beside the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Her hair was disheveled, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked small, broken, human. "Ethan, please," she gasped between sobs. "I'm sorry, I made a mistake. It didn't mean anything. We can work through this." "Get dressed," I said coldly. "Ethan, please. We need to talk about this. I can explain," she pleaded. "Get dressed," I repeated. She scrambled to pull on clothes with shaking hands, still crying, still trying to find words that would somehow undo what I'd seen. But there are no words for betrayal this complete. No explanation that could repair trust this shattered. I walked downstairs with Duke trotting beside me, tail wagging proudly. Good dog, very good dog. He'd done exactly what German Shepherds were bred to do, protect the pack from threats. 5 minutes later, Jessica appeared at the top of the stairs, fully clothed but looking like she'd aged 10 years in the last hour. "Ethan, please," she tried again, her voice hoarse from screaming. "We can work through this. I love you. I made a terrible mistake, but we can—" "Get out," I said simply. "What?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Get out of my house! Where am I supposed to go?" she cried. I opened the front door, cold November air rushing in. "Not my problem." Jessica stared at me like she couldn't believe this was happening. Like she'd expected tears, pleading, maybe a fight where she could twist the narrative and make me the villain. Instead, she found ice, steel. A man who'd already moved past forgiveness into pure, calculated justice. "Ethan, please, don't do this. I have nowhere to go. My family," she sobbed. "Should have thought of that before you brought your boyfriend into my house," I replied. She sobbed, stumbled toward the door, still trying to find some combination of words that would change this reality. But I was done listening, done believing, done being the fool. I closed the door behind her and locked it with finality. Through the front window, I watched her collapse on the lawn, crying hysterically, fumbling for her phone. I didn't open the door. Instead, I turned to Duke and pulled a treat from the jar. "Good boy, Duke. Very good boy." He chomped the treat and leaned against my leg, solid and warm and loyal. The best friend I'd ever had. The only one who'd never lied to me. "We're going to be just fine," I told him, scratching behind his ears. For the first time in weeks, I actually believed it. My phone rang an hour later. Jessica's father, Martin Reed, his voice booming with righteous indignation. "What the hell did you do to my daughter?" he demanded. "She showed up here hysterical, saying you threw her out over some minor disagreement. You have no right to—" "She told you it was a minor disagreement?" I interrupted, keeping my voice calm, almost conversational. "Yes, and you have no right to throw a woman out on the street over—" he continued angrily. "She was cheating on me, Martin," I said simply. "I caught her in our bed with another man. I have video proof." Silence. Heavy, stunned silence that stretched for long seconds. "What?" he whispered. "Check your email." "I'm sending it now," I replied. I hung up and immediately forwarded the footage. Jessica kissing Brandon at the door, leading him upstairs. The bedroom scene in all its undeniable detail. I included timestamps, dates, everything a father would need to see the truth about his daughter. 10 minutes later, Martin called back. His voice was quiet now, defeated, ashamed. "Jesus Christ, Ethan. I had no idea." "I'm so sorry," he said. "She manipulated you," I replied. "Just like she manipulated me for months. Maybe years. She's not staying here," he said, his voice hardening with disgust. "I won't have a cheater under my roof. She can find her own place." "Good," I answered. "For what it's worth, son. You deserve better. You always did," he added quietly. The line went dead. I sat in the silence of my house, truly my house now, with Duke curled up beside me on the couch. For the first time since finding those boxer briefs, I felt like I could breathe. The betrayal had cut deep, deeper than I'd thought possible. But I hadn't just survived it. I'd dismantled it piece by piece with precision and irrefutable proof, and I wasn't done yet. Jessica tried calling 17 times that night. I blocked her after the third call. She sent emails, text messages, desperate pleas that I deleted without reading. Her tears didn't move me anymore. Her apologies fell on deaf ears. She'd made her choice when she brought Brandon into our home. Now she could live with the consequences. The next morning I called Robert Klein. "I have the evidence," I said simply. "How clear is it?" he asked. "Crystal. Video footage of her bringing him into our house, bedroom footage of them together, timestamps, dates, everything." "Outstanding," he replied. "I'll file the papers today. With evidence this solid, we can fast-track the proceedings. She won't contest. Trust me, no lawyer will advise her to fight this." "How soon?" I asked. 60 days, maybe less. We'll invoke the infidelity clause in your prenup. She gets nothing. No house, no savings, no alimony. Clean break." I smiled for the first time in weeks. "Do it." Jessica's attempts to reach me became more desperate over the following days. She showed up at my office, but security escorted her out. She tried approaching me at the grocery store, but I simply walked away. She even sent her mother to plead her case. But I told Mrs. Reed exactly what I'd told her husband. Check the footage, see the truth, then ask yourself if you'd want your son married to a woman like that, I said. The paperwork moved through the system with mechanical efficiency. Jessica hired a lawyer, some public defender who took one look at the evidence and advised her to sign everything without contest. Fighting would only drag out the humiliation, cost money she didn't have, and accomplish nothing. The video evidence was overwhelming. Brandon Hayes tried to press charges against me for Duke's attack. Reckless endangerment, failure to control a dangerous animal, whatever his lawyer could think up. But the district attorney reviewed the case and declined to prosecute. Home invasion, adultery, provocation. Brandon had been trespassing in my home, in my bed, with my wife. Self-defense laws might be murky, but public opinion wasn't. Besides, no jury in the county would convict a man whose dog attacked his wife's lover. If anything, they'd want to buy Duke a steak dinner. Brandon spent 4 weeks in the hospital. Duke's bite had caused severe lacerations that required reconstructive surgery and left permanent nerve damage. The doctor said he was lucky it wasn't worse, but Brandon didn't feel lucky. He could barely walk without pain, and the story had spread through our small community like wildfire. That's the guy who got mauled by a dog after sleeping with someone's wife. He moved to another state 6 months later, seeking a fresh start and anonymity. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd never cheated again, not because of any moral awakening, but because the memory of Duke's jaws haunted his nightmares. Some lessons are learned in blood. 60 days later, the divorce was finalized. She didn't contest a single point. Her lawyer had advised that fighting would only make things worse, cost more money, and she'd still lose everything. The video evidence was too clear, too damning, too legally devastating. She got nothing. No house, no savings, no alimony. The prenup I'd insisted on 3 years ago, the one Jessica had signed without reading carefully because she trusted me, because she loved me, because she never imagined it would matter, had an ironclad infidelity clause. Adultery voided everything. Jessica Reed, she dropped my last name immediately, as if that could somehow distance her from the consequences, walked away with her clothes and whatever she could fit in her car. Everything else stayed with me. The house, the savings account, the car I'd bought her for her birthday, the furniture we'd picked out together, the life we'd built. She moved into a cramped studio apartment across town, the only place she could afford on her new cashier's salary at a discount grocery store. It was the only job she could find without references, without a recent work history, without the connections she'd burned when the truth came out. Her parents wouldn't speak to her. Her mother had called once, 3 weeks after the divorce was final, voice broken with disappointment. "How could you do this to him? To us," she'd cried. "We welcomed him into our family. We loved him like a son, and you destroyed everything. For what? For some stranger?" Jessica had tried to explain, to justify, to make her mother understand that it had been a mistake, that she still loved me, that she wanted to fix things. But her mother had hung up mid-sentence. The Reed family Christmas card came addressed only to me that year, with a handwritten note from Martin. "You'll always be our son-in-law in our hearts." Jessica's old friends distanced themselves quickly. The video had leaked somehow. I genuinely didn't know how, but small towns have big mouths and everybody knows everybody. She became a cautionary tale, the woman whispered about in grocery store aisles and coffee shop lines. That's her. That's the one who cheated on Ethan Cross, with his dog in the house and everything. Can you imagine? Women looked at her with disgust or pity. Men looked at her like damaged goods, wondering if she was available for casual encounters, but nothing serious. Who could trust a woman who'd betrayed a husband like that? She tried reaching out to me once, 3 months after the divorce was finalized. A handwritten letter slipped under my door while I was at work. "Ethan, I know you probably won't read this, but I had to try. I'm sorry. I was stupid and selfish, and I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. I miss you. I miss Duke. I miss our life together. I know I have no right to ask, but could we talk? Just once? I can explain everything if you'll let me. I still love you." Jessica read it once, tore it up, and threw it in the trash. Then I blocked her new number and had my lawyer send a cease and desist letter. She didn't contact me again. 6 months later, I heard she'd tried dating someone new, a divorced construction worker she'd met at a bar. It lasted 3 weeks before he found out who she was, what she'd done. He dumped her via text message. I don't date cheaters. The scarlet letter of adultery followed her everywhere in our small community. She'd branded herself with her choices, and the brand was permanent. Meanwhile, my life moved forward. I got a promotion at work, senior developer with a substantial raise and more responsibility. The recognition felt good, like proof that I was worth more than Jessica had valued me at. I started dating again, carefully and selectively. Sarah, a graphic designer I'd met at a coffee shop, caught my attention with her quick wit and genuine laugh. She had her own career, her own apartment, her own life that didn't depend on anyone else. Independence I found incredibly attractive after years of supporting Jessica's dependency. Trust doesn't come easy for me anymore, I'd told Sarah on our third date, when she asked about my divorce. "That's okay," she'd replied, squeezing my hand. Good things are worth waiting for. Sarah loved Duke, which was non-negotiable for me. She'd throw tennis balls for him in the backyard, scratch behind his ears while we watched movies, bring him treats from the pet store. Duke approved, which meant everything. Ryan still came over for beers and soccer matches just like old times. But now he brought stories of Jessica's continued downfall, the 2 jobs she worked to make rent, the studio apartment with thin walls and noisy neighbors, the social isolation that came with being known as the town's most infamous cheater. "You feel bad for her at all?" Ryan asked one evening, nursing his beer while Arsenal dominated on the TV. I considered the question seriously, watching Duke chase a tennis ball across the backyard through the kitchen window. "No," I answered finally. She made her choice. She chose to cheat instead of talking to me about whatever was wrong. She chose to bring him into our house, our bed. She chose to lie to my face for months. Every consequence she's facing now she earned. Ryan nodded. "Best wedding gift I ever gave you, huh?" he said, gesturing toward Duke, who was now sprawling contentedly in the evening sun. I laughed, real, genuine laughter that felt rusty from disuse. "Damn right." We toasted with our beer bottles, and Duke's tail thumped against the deck like he knew we were talking about him. Later that night, after Ryan had gone home and Sarah had kissed me goodnight at her car, I sat on my back porch with Duke at my feet. The house was quiet, peaceful mine. No more lies, no more deception, no more wondering what Jessica was really doing when she said she was going shopping. I looked at my reflection in the kitchen window, older, harder, wiser than the naive man who'd trusted blindly 3 years ago. I'd learned the difference between love and manipulation, between partnership and dependence, between loyalty and performance. Jessica had taught me valuable lessons, though not the ones she'd intended. She'd shown me what real betrayal looked like, so I'd recognized genuine loyalty when I found it again. She'd demonstrated the cost of taking trust for granted, so I'd never make that mistake again. I didn't regret what I'd done, not for a second, because in the end, I hadn't just survived her betrayal, I'd exposed it, prosecuted it, and emerged stronger from the wreckage. Duke stretched out beside me, gray beginning to show around his muzzle, but still alert, still protective, still the best friend I'd ever had. "Good boy," I whispered, scratching his head. "We did good." His tail thumped against my leg in agreement. We had.